and you can interfere with that pathway and give a person a heart attack. Now, this stuff you could put, these little gadgets you could put in your pocket in the 1950s, it had to be incredibly amazing solid-state circuitry with micro transistors, etc.
Oh, let me stop you. You know, you talk about it too. Aldous Huxley, Julian Huxley's brother, who wrote about genetic engineering and GMO food and different classes of humans in Brave New World, published in, 32, 33, he gave a speech when he knew he was dying and said, this is all real, and even though I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to stop us, and was laughing at everyone. They thought he was being a good guy, warning them. And he said, at our universities, we have people with microelectronics already in their brain, and we're already testing this to be able to remote control humans. And then by the 70s, they admitted they had microchip remote control cockroaches in university reports. They're just now telling the public now. So here he was saying, actually, my book isn't fiction. This is what we've been doing secretly. Decades ago, we had microelectronics in people's brains. Oh, yeah. And you had Delgado, I should say, famous for his bull, where he put a microchip in his brain and remotely controlled it. He could stop a charge from the bull. But he was also, and there's videos up there on YouTube where he's talking about it wasn't just animals he was practicing on humans. Of course he was. And so this is very old stuff, because the idea when they began this socialist movement, that most folk think is left wing, it's really at the top of the right wing who run the socialist movement, and that's why banks are all behind it and so on. But they knew they wanted to bring in a society of well-behaved people who would simply be a slave society, cause no problems, no crime. And how do you make that happen? Well, they dissected all forms of conflict, all conflict, right down to the family home, by the way. And that was part of the reason they came up with, we must dissolve the family unit. And they admit the whole plan is to play men and women off against each other. And they give the cues to men how to behave that'll enrage women. And then they give the women cues to tell them, act like this, you'll be successful. It's really the opposite. Total civilization sabotage. 50,000 unstoppable Alan Watts. They're cloning him. Look out. Ha ha. Look, the globalists want to play God. They want the life extension technologies. They've undoubtedly already have them. They're now bragging they have them. They're offering extended lives to people now who are, quote, wealthy, if they'll buy into transhumanism. But the transhumanist, technocratic, technological systems they're offering are basically enslavement systems. So that's what the general public's going to get, is an enslavement system in the name of life extension. And we have no idea what the actual controllers are doing. When you see people like Gordon Brown or Bill Clinton or George W. Bush or Obama, they're meant to politically rise and fall, be built up and destroyed, like a shield that a knight holds up. And the shield gets all bent up and battered and bruised. And then when they're done after 4 to 8 years, they throw it down and pick up another one. And it's these fundamental things people need to understand. You know, if you look at the news today, they're saying no debt deal. And oh my gosh, now we may default and have depression. They're already defaulting. They're already devaluing the dollar. We're already in a depression. And the bankers are training us to just, everything's about the government, everything's about the bankers, and everything's about our credit agents, the credit agencies' ratings. I mean, they're more important now than the president. And then who are they? Revolving door minions of Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and others. And you know, now the GOP is revolting, just like in '94 with Newt Gingrich, who ended up making sure the contract on America didn't get through. A guy who wrote the foreword to multiple Alvin and Heidi Toffler books calling for world government, calling for a technocracy, calling for the end of America. And they talk about how conservative Newt Gingrich is because people say he's conservative when he's promoting carbon taxes. But I got to tell you, 10 years ago, people wouldn't wake up to Newt Gingrich. Today, they do. And so that's the good news. But now they're saying the GOP has revolted. And isn't going to go along with all this. But again, it's all part of this process. And as long as people can be kept in this false narrative, this false reality. As you go up through politics and media, if you show that you'll buy into the false system, you are promoted in the false system. But if you don't go along with the false system, if you question the presented reality, then, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And now having any opinion is a conspiracy theory. And Cass Sunstein at the White House says, we'll flood the internet with false conspiracy theories. We'll flood the internet with infighting, with bickering. And they're trying to do that. But in the writings of the ruling class is what they really set up. And that's what Alan Watt covers. That's what I cover. Alan, continuing, looking at the globalist program and operations, I see revolts from people within the technocratic class being one of the biggest threats to their system. That's why they're trying to go to an automated global computer system where they don't need armies because it's robot and drone driven, and the robots are worked on by robots, and robots work on those robots, and then some human technicians. They already admit no one at a major computer company even knows how the computers work now. It's just different systems integrated together, and the humans can't even understand it. This is going to get more and more pronounced, and the elite are all over the news saying, we don't need people anymore. Will humans be kept as pets? And the elite's already talking about the computers like they've already merged with them. And Ray Kurzweil says within 15 years, the elite will merge. But if the evidence is that they're already more advanced than we know, the question is, have they already attempted to merge? Or is it all a bunch of quackery where they claim that they have these systems, but they can't even really use them because they don't understand them?
Yeah, well, they already have a whole list of things lined up they're working on now. Even DARPA has admitted that, Homeland Security. I mentioned that on a page last week. All the things that are coming up and they're working on. And one was an artificially intelligent computer system that would literally analyze you and decide even if you should pass the information that you're putting out there on to others or not, or who they should pass it on to. No one would interfere with it. It would be on its own independent. And so they already have artificial intelligent machines using various kinds of different algorithms and so on. However, at the top, you've got to understand, too, that they've been doing amazing stuff, even in Sweden, since the 70s that we know of, on prisoners. That's where they first tried to do human and machine interface, brain interface. This interfacing isn't just to help paraplegics, believe you me, like DARPA would have you think. It's to do with if they can possibly, in the future, or if they've done it already, who knows, download a person's memory. That's the whole point of it all. For the ruling elite who age, they can certainly slow their aging. In fact, David Suzuki, a big player in the greening program, who calls people maggots, by the way. He's the hero of Canada, but people are maggots, but he says there's better kinds of maggots than others. I guess he's referring to his own class. But he said on television years ago, national television live, that he says we now, and he is a geneticist, by the way, he says we now have the ability to make a person live to 500 years if we want to. Well, why not 1,000 or 2,000? The problem is the brain would tend to deteriorate. So the idea, even mentioned years ago in the science magazines, if we could possibly clone, and they said they could, by the way, clone a full human being within 2 weeks, because they can switch on your growth factors and your hormones and so on, make you literally grow up from an embryo into a full human in a few weeks. And at first they said it was for body parts, for special people. But now it's more into, could they possibly take the memory of that aged person, especially the first batch who haven't stayed young, put it that way, they haven't had the treatment for eternal youth, but could we possibly take that memory from the aged person and transfer it into his own clone? And so they've been talking about this and working on it, obviously, and that's what really the brain-machine interface has been all about. And again, the spin-offs are amazing because they also say, well, if we can tap into the brain, we won't need the torture techniques anymore. We can plug into you and find out what you're thinking, download all your memories, and they'll know exactly if you've been lying to them or not. This has all been going ahead as we quietly watch soccer or football or whatever else we're watching, or Lady Gaga dancing with plasticized corpses. I mean, this is the reality of where we are. The elites prime directive is for their own survival. We must always remember that. They have contingency plans for all kinds of things that could go wrong in the world for themselves. We know they've got underground cities even. They've even had characters in England going around the underground bases, not getting into them, but they admit they're there. And they've had them for years in case there's of all kinds of things, not just nuclear disaster, but possibly, an asteroid hitting you. Anything at all they can think of, because the elite, being at the top of the tree, the evolution tree, they talk about it themselves. That's what they say. The fittest to survive must ensure that their own personal survival comes first. We are all expendable in the process.
That's right, Alan.
Your sci-fi movies show you that, like 2012. It's always the elite that survive, the rest are sacrificed.
Absolutely, and expanding on that, just like I knew they were about to move from the Muslim al-Qaeda to the white terrorist, so the whole apparatus could be turned loose on everyone, as it was always built and designed for. Now they're just admitting its true function, that they are now preconditioning how sexy it is. The world after humans, TV shows, movies, books, on end caps at grocery stores, everyone learning how trendy it is to hate their fellow humans. So when you're SWAT teamed or drug away or dying of cancer, when half your block's dying of something, as the soft kill is incrementally intensified, the ambient slow kill system accelerated towards fast kill, that it's a subconscious preparation of a celebration of our destruction and the pot-bellied parasites ruling over us. And I see this now building towards a crescendo. I know they'll want to release smaller bioplagues first, pose as saviors, use that as an excuse to put in a tighter control grid, and then release even more deadly plagues, and then a tighter control grid, always playing the part of the saviors while they murder us. But I see them edging towards that, and I see them debating, how great it's going to be when the airborne Ebola is released, and how great it is that the human mousepox kills 99%, and isn't it time to just go ahead and pull the trigger? Like it's an exciting, sexy something new for them, and they want to pull the Moonraker trigger. How far away do you think that is till they got all these new movies coming out with Matt Damon about billions dying and everything from the new bioplague. So how long till they really get to have their holiday, their mass murder enjoyment time? Because then they get to go to the bunkers and be given the cure and everything, and kind of all be honest about it and watch it on their robotic cameras, the mass destruction, and then they get to reemerge and everything's so much fun. I mean, how long till they take the people that they've turned into mindless sports fans and just start mass slaughtering everybody?
Well, we're in the phase now, which they have disclosed from their own military think tanks for the next 50 years or so, their projections, and they've had that out for a few years now. And both the US and the British NATO group came to the same conclusions. They're going to, and when they're doing it, they're getting folk off the land, the rural areas, through incredible masses of new regulations. The gasoline is going up, that'll get you off too. They've closed down most of the country hospitals, so you have to move into the city if you want treatment. There are 100 different ways to get you to move. Just like animals, again, how do we get them to move from here to there? And it's all been discussed. And so once we're all in the already overcrowded cities, they've already got an internal army. RAND, by the way, I've got the RAND document on that too, where they talked about the coming civil strife in the U.S. as they push more and more folk into the overcrowded cities. So they're always planning ahead for the fallout. And once we're together, it's easier then to release the plagues. Now, they're talking up to the year 2020 to try to cram us into the cities. That's why they're on a roll now with austerity. Austerity suddenly comes in after the last planned bank crash, which wasn't a crash at all, really. And things didn't just go to money heaven. Somebody's got the key to it. But the reality is this is austerity, and we've also got to share and reduce our standard of living. And eventually the United Nations, as it says in its own charter for the Department of Agriculture, will dish out the food. They'll dole out the food to each region of the earth, and then you must bring down your own population according to the rations that you're given. That's in their own mandates, by the way.